This episode is brought to you by Peacock. The new Peacock original documentary, Matthew Perry, A Hollywood Tragedy, dives deep into the beloved actor's rise to fame and his tragic death. 5 people, including Perry's personal assistant, 2 medical doctors, and an alleged Hollywood drug dealer known as the Ketamine Queen, were charged with conspiracy to illegally provide Perry with the ketamine. Explore the details of the case in this heartbreaking special, streaming now only on Peacock.
This episode is brought to you by State Farm. From your morning podcast to your afternoon playlist, State Farm knows you personalize your entire day, and that's why State Farm helps you personalize your insurance with the State Farm Personal Price Plan. It offers coverage options that help protect what you care about most at an affordable price just for you. Like a good neighbor, State Farm is there. Prices vary by state. Options selected by customer. Availability and eligibility may vary.
All right, so let's jump into some news for the run here. Let's kick it off with the NFL because I left you guys kind of on a cliffhanger, and I feel like as soon as I finished recording last week, of course, some more breaking news comes out about Matthew Stafford. But as far as Matthew Stafford, he is re-signing with the LA Rams, not going anywhere. And as a matter of fact, they asked Sean McVay about it, and Sean McVay said we were actually pretty confident that he wasn't going anywhere from the jump. And I got some audio here as well.
How close did it get to you losing Matthew Stafford? Or
it never did. It never really got close. I think the important thing, Dan, was at the start of this process, and I've been pretty open about some of the communication and the clarity that was deserved. And I had some growing up to do when we ended up making the move to acquire Matthew for Jared Goff, to acquire Matthew and move Jared Goff. And so wanted to have clear, open, and honest dialogue throughout that process. But the end goal in mind was always to be able to get him back. And I realized how much I wanted to get that solved when I've been sleeping so much better over the last couple of nights than I was the previous couple weeks.
All right, so some pretty big news that also happened in the NFL is the Philadelphia Eagles. They cut their 6-time Pro Bowler cornerback Darius Slay. He's going to be finding a new home at some point, but they're looking to save some cap space. I believe if Darius Slay signs with another team before the June deadline, then Eagles will actually save some money on the cap. But interesting here because, they just coming off a Super Bowl. You try and keep as many pieces as you can, but of course, guys want to get paid because that time span in the NFL is only for so long. And hey, Slay, big play Slay, been playing at an elite level since he's been in the NFL. So definitely worth going to go get a payday somewhere else. Now, the Cincinnati Bengals are also in the mix here. Now, T. Higgins was once one of the biggest named free agents coming up in the NFL, but it seems like the Cincinnati Bengals are going to try and keep him around for another year as they hit him with a franchise tag for the 2nd year in a row. So what this franchise tag means is just that they're keeping him for another year under a specific amount of money. That way they can possibly bring him back and avoid him being an unrestricted free agent. So, hey, it's rough, but they really want to keep him there. It seems like they're not in the business of letting guys go. And also from what I've seen and read, they want to pay Jamar Chase, keep him around, and then ultimately pay T. Higgins as well and keep him around. But, it's wild ever since this franchise tag has come into play. Anyway, you got some more guys here in the NFL. So I mentioned the wide receiver for the 49ers, Deebo Samuel, was traded to the Commanders. And then the New York Giants are in the mix for possibly adding Aaron Rodgers. Now, I don't know what in his right mind he would want to go play for the New York Jets, but who knows? A lot of crazy things has been happening so far in the NFL. So, we really don't know. Anyway, we got some stuff in the NBA going on now. In the NBA, the Dallas Mavericks, as you know, the big thing that they did was trade Luka Doncic, which is insane. But now the Dallas Mavericks even got more nerve to raise the ticket prices for site investment purposes. Now, this is just wild because nobody in their right mind at this point is really caring that much to go see the Dallas Mavericks with no Luka Doncic and an injured Anthony Davis. And this is not a franchise that is just beyond the league in terms of being the Los Angeles Lakers or the Boston Celtics or the New York Knicks. No, this is the Dallas Mavericks. Pipe down a little bit. Please. So, yeah, that's wild, man. Other than that, though, there are a couple teams who've been dominating in the NBA. So just to kind of give you a heads up on which teams has been good and which teams has not really been the best. One of the teams in the Eastern Conference, I got to give them their props, even though I really don't want to. The Cleveland Cavaliers, man. This team has won 10 straight games. Whew, they've been killing it. They're first in the Western Conference, still 50 wins, 10 losses so far. You got to give credit where it's due. And the Cleveland Cavs, man, they look good. DeAndre Hunter has looked good coming off the bench. And he makes them, honestly, a lot more scary than what they already have been throughout the course of the season, because Hunter comes in and he gives buckets, man. He's coming off the bench, he's giving you hell, man. I think if he was already on the Cavs in the start of the season, you could argue him for sixth man of the year, honestly. And yeah, I wouldn't be mad at anybody who continues to make that argument, even though he hasn't really played a certain amount of games with the Cleveland Cavaliers. But man, that team has been rolling. Also in the Eastern Conference right now, the Detroit Pistons, they have been balling, as you know. That win streak did come to an end, but they are 9-1 in the last 10 games that they've played so far. So you got to give them credit, and I'm telling you, they play great basketball. So you got to keep an eye out for those guys. Also in the Western Conference, you got some good teams over there as well. Oklahoma City Thunder, they won 8 out of their last 10 games. The Los Angeles Lakers, 6-game winning streak right now. They've won 8 out of their last 10 games. Also, too, the Denver Nuggets, 7 of their last 10 games as well. So you got some teams in the West that's spiking it up for competition, and that's just kind of one of the things where I want to drive this show right now is just, the Western Conference and the Eastern Conference, to me, is just very wide open. It's kind of open up for grabs. The East is definitely up for grabs. I mean, a person can vouch for the Boston Celtics, can vouch for the Cleveland Cavaliers, but ultimately, depending on who these guys match up with, will determine if they end up going all the way to the finals. And then, of course, as you know, health is always the ultimate factor in whoever succeeds. Because last year, you could argue that the Celtics don't even see the finals if you ran into a healthy Knicks team, or you ran into a healthy Pacers team, or a healthy Cleveland Cavaliers team. Everybody they played was hurt. And the last thing we want to see is a repeat of teams falling down and not being able to stand up and toward the end of the season. But the way I'm looking at it now, all the records between the 4th seed and the 6th seed in the Eastern Conference are very close. They're no more than 2 games apart. Actually, they all got 34 wins from the 4th to the 6th seed. So looking at this and seeing the Pistons there, the Pacers, and the Milwaukee Bucks, all of these teams can beat each other. It's just going to be a thing of who plays who and how well these guys lock in and play each other, and how well coaches adjust to the new opponent and the new matchups that they have to look at in the series. Because right now, man, it's close in the Eastern Conference. And even if you jump to the West, it's the same way. But specifically in the East, of course, Pistons been playing great ball, but depending on who they match up against, they might not see the second round. And you could say the same thing for the Knicks. Depending on who they match up against, they might not see the second round, even though they're the 3rd seed right now. I think the only team that has, as of right now, a guaranteed slot or guaranteed, who have my confidence in terms of a guaranteed trip to the second round, will probably be the Cleveland Cavaliers. But even then, that's no joke, because the Orlando Magic, they're a young team. They're nice, though. They're nice. Miami Heat, they're scrappy. Like, it's no rest. It's no ifs, ands, or buts in this playoff series coming up. I feel like in the Eastern Conference, it's easily up for grabs. You got a lot of teams here you can make an argument for, but ultimately it's going to buckle down to who makes the adjustments, who plays good basketball, who's more consistent, who's playing defense. And when you look at the Western Conference, literally the same exact thing. OKC is number 1 right now in the Western Conference, but the Lakers are right there. Won 8 of their last 10 games, and they've been balling. I think we're just now seeing the start of the Lakers heating up with Luka Doncic and LeBron, but that is a scary duo that you would want to run into in the playoffs. And it gets even worse in the Western Conference, because you look at the 2nd seed all the way from the 5th seed, and it's 1 or 2 games apart. They all got 38 wins. The 3rd seed and Denver Nuggets got 39 wins, but yet they're behind the Lakers right now because they've played more games. And the Lakers got a higher win percentage right now. So, it can go either way. And this is fun. This is where it heats up in the season. This is where things get interesting of like who's going to win and what team's playing the best toward the end of the season, because when playoffs start, it ain't no more excuses. It ain't no more excuses at all. And then if you're a team like the Oklahoma City Thunder, man, first seed right now, you don't even have a rest week. If the season ends today, you don't even have a rest week because OKC would either be playing Minnesota Timberwolves or the Golden State Warriors. You don't want to see either one of them in the first round. So I'm loving where we are right now. I'm loving where we are in the season. It's a lot of competition right now. And above all, some of the teams that stand out to me in terms of what they're doing right now. Obviously, I got to give credit to the Lakers, man. I didn't really want to give the Lakers their credit as soon as they teamed up with Luka Doncic and LeBron. But now we're starting to see this team really adjust and lock in and gel well with each other because they've been playing good, and watching them from just a strictly ball playing perspective and what they're doing on the court, minus out the score, take away the big names and all of that, they look good. They look like an actual unit. They look like an actual team. And I can't even imagine if they had a center at this point because it would just be ruthless. It would be ruthless. I will say, if the Lakers run into the Denver Nuggets, they're going to run into some problems. But that's just one of them things where it's all about matchups in the playoffs. In the Eastern Conference, one of the teams, it's actually a couple of teams that I'm looking at where I see is guys where it can be tough. Pistons is one of them teams where they can really knock you out the playoffs. You come in thinking they're the same Pistons that won 14 games, you will get knocked out the playoffs. You go in, you play around with the Indiana Pacers, you're going to get knocked out the playoffs. And the Cleveland Cavaliers, I know they're the number 1 seed, but part of me just feel like the Cavaliers are not getting the respect that they deserve, even though they're the number 1 seed. They've won 10 straight games so far. They've been balling, and they haven't been just playing bad teams either. They've been playing some good teams in this mix. You look at the Timberwolves, you look at the Grizzlies, the Knicks, the Celtics, the Pistons. They play the Bulls tonight, but above all, this team has been balling. Like I said, they got a stacked roster from head to toe, from the starting 5 all the way to the 6th man, 7th man, 8th man. And then adding DeAndre Hunter is just, it's a big threat, man. And he's going to cause people problems come playoffs because he comes off the bench and he hoops. So I'm nervous about that, man. And I would be okay with the Cavs winning. I don't know if I would really want to see, I wouldn't want to see him beat the Pistons, but the Pistons get put out, which I don't think they end up going to the finals, but they get put out, I wouldn't be mad at the Cleveland Cavaliers going back to the finals and taking care of some business. I wouldn't be mad at that at all. I mean, the way they've been playing, they deserve it. Stacked roster head to toe. They play defense. They shoot well. They play smart. Man, I ain't got nothing bad to say about the Cleveland Cavaliers. They've been on a tear. Anyway, look, man, that's all I got for you today. So I appreciate you if you've been listening to the whole episode. Leave us a quick take, 219-413-9405, and we'll play your take back on our next episode. Who you think going to the finals? Who you think gonna be the standout team in this back end of the season as we go? We got teams with less than 20 games left, man. It's coming to an end real soon. So we got some teams got a little less than like 22, 25 games. But it's still back in, man. They're going to start busting these back-to-backs out and all of that stuff. It's going to go by fast. So I definitely recommend getting well acquainted to whatever team you got looking good so far. And then same for March Madness too, because that's here. That's about to get picked up too. Hoping Michigan State continue up the good work, do what they got to do, take care of business. Them boys have been balling on a low too. I know I don't talk too much about college basketball, but still keep up with it when I can. Other than that, man, that's all I got. I appreciate you for tuning in. Follow us on Instagram at The Run Podcast, TikTok at The Run Podcast, YouTube at The Run Podcast. And then from there, we will be back later on next week, or later on this week, actually. And so on and so on and so on.